Imagine this. Long before the pharaohs raised their pyramids, before Sumerians pressed their first cuneiform tablets, a group of cattle herders in the deep Sahara Desert built a stone circle aligned with the stars. Archaeologists call it Nabta Playa, and if the dating is correct, it could be one of the oldest known astronomical sites in the world, thousands of years before Stonehenge. Today, Nabta Playa is nothing but barren desert, 500 miles south of Cairo. But around 10,000 to 7,000 years ago, it wasn't like this. The Sahara was a lush savanna, dotted with lakes and grasslands. Nomadic tribes gathered here, herding cattle, digging wells, and building settlements. At the heart of Nabta Playa stands a megalithic stone circle, dated to 7,000 to 6,000 BC. The stones are carefully arranged to align with the summer solstice sunrise and the stars of Orion's belt. To put this in perspective, that's 2,000 years older than Stonehenge and nearly as old as Göbekli Tepe. How did cattle herders with no writing, no metal, and no cities develop such precise astronomical knowledge? The solstice alignment suggests they understood not just seasons, but long-term cycles of the stars. Some researchers argue the builders were tracking the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon it supposedly took ancient Greece thousands of years to calculate. Egyptologists debate whether Nabta Playa's builders were precursors to the pharaonic religion. The stones align with Orion's belt and Sirius, the same celestial bodies later worshipped in dynastic Egypt. Some suggest Nabta Playa was the spiritual prototype that seeded the myths of Osiris and Isis. Around 4800 BC, the Sahara began to dry out, and Nabta Playa was abandoned, swallowed by desert sands. But the legacy remained. The knowledge of the stars may have migrated north to the Nile Valley, eventually flowering into dynastic Egypt. Was Nabta Playa the true cradle of Egyptian civilization? Or is it evidence of an even older, forgotten culture that once mapped the heavens across the globe? Nabta Playa raises a haunting question. Did the Egyptians inherit their star-aligned monuments from a forgotten people who watched the skies in the Sahara, long before history began?
Next up, we can dive into Shahr-e Sukhteh, the burnt city in Iran, which looks like a civilization way ahead of its time and then suddenly erased. In the windswept deserts of southeastern Iran lie the ruins of a city forgotten for millennia, a place where its people crafted artificial eyes, performed brain surgery, and played games older than history itself. Archaeologists call it Shahr-e Sukhteh, the burnt city. And to this day, no one knows exactly who built it or why it collapsed. Shahr-e Sukhteh flourished around 3200 BC to 1800 BC, the same era as early Mesopotamia and Egypt. But unlike Sumer, there's no evidence of ziggurats, kings, or writing. Instead, it was a sprawling city of 50 hectares with homes, workshops, and cemeteries. It's set on major trade routes connecting Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and Central Asia. The city's ruins show clear evidence of multiple fires, but no signs of invasion. Entire neighborhoods were consumed, abandoned, and then resettled, only to burn again. Some believe it was destroyed by accidental blazes. Others whisper of ritual burnings tied to its decline. This is where Shahr-e Sukhteh truly shocks archaeologists. The artificial eye, 2800 BC, a woman was buried with a prosthetic eye made of bitumen paste covered in gold foil. At 5,000 years old, it's the oldest artificial eye ever found. Brain surgery, trepanation. A skull shows evidence of cranial surgery, where a hole was cut into the skull and the patient survived for months after. This predates similar surgeries in Greece by over a millennium. Backgammon board, the oldest known backgammon set found here, suggesting not just survival but leisure, culture, and strategy. What makes Shahr-e Sukhteh unique is what it doesn't have. No temples, no palaces, no evidence of kings or centralized power. Instead, it seems to have been a community of equals, with advanced artisanship and trade. This challenges the idea that hierarchy is the natural start of civilization. By 1800 BC, the burnt city was abandoned for good. No evidence of conquest, no mass graves of war. Most likely destroyed by climate change. As rivers dried up and the desert expanded, the city could no longer sustain itself. But the sudden disappearance fuels theories that it was more than just a city, maybe the fragment of a larger, forgotten culture spanning Iran and Central Asia. In Shahr-e Sukhteh, we glimpse a Bronze Age people with knowledge and skills that rival civilizations thousands of years younger. Yet they vanish, leaving behind nothing but ashes and mysteries. Was this city an isolated marvel or a surviving fragment of a far older world?
Long before the rise of the Indus Valley civilization, there was Mehrgarh, a settlement on the plains of what is now Pakistan, dating back to 7000 BC. Here, people were farming, trading, crafting art, and even performing dentistry, thousands of years before history officially began. Mehrgarh sits at the foot of the Bolan Pass, a key crossroads between the Indus Valley and the Iranian Plateau. At a time when most humans still hunted and gathered, Mehrgarh's people were building mud brick houses, raising goats and cattle, and cultivating barley and wheat. This wasn't a random camp. It was one of the first true villages, a place where humanity began the leap from nomads to city builders. Archaeologists uncovered human teeth drilled with tiny flint tools dating back over 9,000 years. These are the oldest known dental treatments in the world. Some teeth even show signs of cavity treatment, proving these weren't ritual markings, but real medical attempts to ease pain. Mehrgarh wasn't isolated. Beads, shells, and lapis lazuli have been found here, materials that came from hundreds of miles away. This means trade networks were already forming in the 7th millennium BC. The people of Mehrgarh also left behind intricate figurines of humans and animals, many decorated with paint, hairstyles, and jewelry. Proof that these were not just survivors, but a culture with identity and style. Many scholars see Mehrgarh as the direct ancestor of the Indus Valley civilization, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. The shift from simple farming villages to massive urban centers may have begun here. Mehrgarh shows us the missing link between Stone Age nomads and city builders. By around 2600 BC, Mehrgarh was largely abandoned. The people seemed to move eastward into the Indus Valley, carrying their knowledge with them. But why leave a city that had thrived for thousands of years? Some argue climate shifts dried the region. Others suggest epidemics or resource collapse. Mehrgarh may be humanity's first experiment in city life, a place where farming, medicine, trade, and art all began 9,000 years ago. But its ruins remind us that every civilization, no matter how advanced, can rise and vanish.
When we think of pyramids, we think of Egypt or maybe Mesoamerica, but hidden in the Peruvian desert lies a civilization just as old, with pyramids, plazas, and a complex society, but with no evidence of war, no weapons, no conquest. This is Caral Supe, the oldest known city in the Americas, built at the same time as the Great Pyramids of Giza. Caral Supe dates back to 2600 BC, thriving for nearly 1,000 years. Located in a desert valley along the Supe River, it wasn't sustained by armies or empires, but by irrigation and trade. Its builders raised monumental pyramids, circular plazas, and residential districts, an urban experiment on par with the Old World's first cities. The city features 6 massive pyramids, some nearly as large as those of Egypt, but built with different techniques. Constructed with stone and woven reed bags filled with rubble, they were designed to withstand earthquakes. At the center lies the Great Pyramid of Caral, rising 18 meters high, surrounded by smaller pyramids and sunken circular plazas. Archaeologists discovered flutes made of condor and pelican bones, suggesting music and ceremony were central to life. Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, there are no signs of warfare, no weapons, no fortifications, no mass graves. Caral's people seem to have built a society rooted in ritual, trade, and shared prosperity rather than conquest. Caral Supe rose seemingly out of nowhere, with no signs of smaller precursor towns. And around 1800 BC, it too was abandoned. Climate change, shifting rivers, and resource collapse likely drove its decline. But the question remains, how did a desert society create pyramids and urban centers as old as Egypt's without contact, writing, or warfare? Caral Supe challenges our assumptions about how civilizations are born. In a time when most of the world's first cities were forged through war and kingship, Caral's pyramids whisper of a different path, a lost civilization that built its greatness on peace, music, and the rhythms of the earth.